Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour post Super Bowl 60 edition as the Seattle Seahawks win their second Super Bowl in franchise history. Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry and Jay Croucher. Matthew, still on site down there near Santa Clara. How are you?
Well, yeah, I'm in a hotel room to be perfectly honest. I don't want to think like, where's that near the stadium? It's a hotel room. It's an undisclosed hotel room. I don't want to be swarmed by the mob. But you know what? I'm good. I'm coming off my high of the Super Bowl. It was it was awesome. It was a very cool thing to experience, to be on the field for, to sort of see everything and experience everything. It was kind of crazy.
Was there a single highlight, Matthew, of the pregame show experience?
Well, I mean, just that I got to do it, right? I mean, like, just that I got to do it. That and people were tweeting about the fact that I was the first guy that came from fantasy football to do a Super Bowl pregame show. A lot of people very kind on social media, which they often aren't. But yesterday they were very kind. I thought all my hits went well. Most of my bets hit, not all of them. I'm sure we'll get into that. So yeah, I mean, that was just cool. And then just like kind of being part of the team, right? Took pictures with Tirico and Collinsworth, Carmelo Anthony was there, right? Highlighting our NBA coverage, and your good friend, Carmelo Anthony, but as you know, I went to Syracuse. So Carmelo is, Carmelo was my guy. So it was cool just to talk to Melo for a little bit. Did one of my hits with Noah Eagle, who's also a Syracuse guy. So it was, bunch of Syracuse love as well. And we see Aloha Brooke says, I drink for free today. Thank you very much. Lord knows, like, I was so nervous, honestly. And, the whole week just totally stressed out. My wife and kids came out and, to, sort of support me and help celebrate. But the night before, like, I was just no fun to be around because I was super stressed about everything. And anyway, so, anyway, but it was great. It went as well as I could have hoped, with the exception of Ken Walker. I just needed Ken Walker to catch that pass that hit him in the 9 and he dropped off, because otherwise then that one drove me crazy, because obviously then he has 3 receptions, not 2, and I win my bet there.
There you go. Well, Matthew, my 3-year-old Rio, when you popped up on the screen, doing your best bet, I think she said, "Is that Mr. Strawberry?" And I said, "Yes, that's Mr. Strawberry." And then when I popped up later on in the commercial that we did, she asked if that was her other dad. She couldn't really gather the concept of me being in 2 places at once, in the room with her and on the TV screen. But no, very cool. And it seemed like you got amazing feedback from the community and everyone, Matthew. So well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was awesome. A lot of people saw our commercial, Jay. A lot of people saw our commercial, and then I did a different one as well. So all very cool. God bless Mr. King. Thank you, Mr. King.
So Seattle covers the -4.5. This game opened up at 3.5 at the top of the post-conference championships, and the game went under, which I know is really, really popular. A lot of people, including us, kind of looked at this as a defensive battle. It got a little scary at the end there. There was some, I don't want to call it garbage time production, Jay, but obviously there was a little bit of a feel of that the point total was chased. But this was also the first time a favorite has covered since Super Bowl 54, when the Chiefs were just a 1.5 favorite over the Niners.
Yeah, so I would say it was garbage time. It was kind of reminiscent of Mahomes last year against the Eagles, with those bomb plays to Xavier Worthy, padding the stats a little bit and padding the score. I mean, in the end, Drake Maye had 295 passing yards, which is odd because in real time it felt like he had 6 for the whole game. But he was able to get those completions, particularly to Mac Hollins at the end. And yeah, ended up 29-13. Doesn't really feel like a reflection of the game. It felt more like 17-0, to be frank. But yeah, ultimately under hits. The favorite hits, I think most of the public was on Seattle and thought that this might be a blowout, but the line held pretty firm. I think ultimately if the game was played again, obviously Seattle would be more heavily favored, but it could have unfolded differently. For as dominant as the Seattle defense was, their offense was not particularly dominant. They couldn't finish in the red zone until Darnold connected with A.J. Barner. But ultimately, the defining aspect of the game, Connor, was just Seattle's defense flying around, Drake Maye not being able to do anything. And if I'm going to remember one player from this game, it's probably Devin Witherspoon.
Without a doubt, it felt like that blitz off the edge. And, Witherspoon is a guy that plays a lot in the slot. He can play outside corner, but his ability in the box is what makes him one of the most special corners in the NFL. There's just not a lot of corners, especially at his size, that are that physical and that fast coming downhill. And Matthew, just New England never had an answer for it. It felt like they got beat by the same blitz throughout the first 3 quarters of the game. The pass protection with the 2 rookies on the left side of their offensive line was, a huge storyline coming into this game, and it felt like an even bigger storyline during the game. And Drake Maye held on to the ball a lot, trying to make a play, and took a lot of sacks and had turnovers. It just felt like New England, who their veteran coaching staff always has an answer coming out of the half, couldn't find it in this game, specifically on offense.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the offensive line, and one of the reasons why one of the prop bets that I gave out as part of my parlay was that, Drake Maye over on the rushing. And so depending on what line you got, the line I gave an alt line of 25, which he hit. The line, I think, closed at 39.5, which he did not. He finishes with 37. But, kind of the thought that we talked about all week long was he's going to be running for his life, and that's exactly what ended up happening here. Seattle, by the way, saw a stat here, but Seattle did not blitz all that much. They were able to get pressure just with that front 4. Tough day out of the office for the Patriots offensive line. And, listen, credit to the Seahawks defense. But I don't think, Connor, from what I saw, and I actually, I was watching it in the stands with my wife and kids. So, I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that I was closely watching every game. There's a lot of Dad, get me some chicken tenders, so a couple of chicken tender plays off, you understand. And Jay, they were definitely for my daughters, and
I was going to say for the kids.
Say. Yeah, I didn't know that chicken tenders were a genetic condition that get passed down to one's offspring.
They are. Yeah, absolutely. But at any rate, but it just felt like they didn't do much defensively that was exotic. It felt like they were just we're going to do what we do. We're going to rush. That's right. We're going to drop 7. We're going to, we'll blitz here and there, but for the most part, we think our guys are better than your guys, and we're gonna wait to see if you prove us wrong. And the Patriots just never did.
No, it felt like Mike McDonald came into this game going, I think we're better than them. We match up better defensively, where we're gonna rush 4, and we do have the blitz with Witherspoon that can kind of be our sweet spot when to kind of press that button. Where you play a lot of zone coverages on the back end that we mix up, and we can rotate the safety. And May, for at least the first 3 quarters, just never read any of them. And it's a tough balance, guys, when you're under duress so fast, and even with a 5-man protection against a 4-man rush, but you're also not confident in what you're seeing pre and post snap. That's how it leads to you taking so many sacks, or the interception at the end was just it was a couple throws that you're just looking at and going, he's just not seeing the field well at all. They couldn't just lean on their run game with Rhamondre Stevenson. It did feel like the few times they tried to run some outside zone with TreVeyon Henderson, there was some room there with his speed getting to the edge, but they didn't come out into the game expecting to be able to do that, so they didn't lean on it. And it was simply just too late. But you're right, Matthew. Mike McDonald said, I'll make my adjustments on the defensive side of the ball in the second half if I have to, but we're just going to remain true to who we are, because outside of Matthew Stafford, the MVP of this year's NFL season, it felt like no quarterback can figure out this Seattle defense like that.
Yeah. His QBR was 16. That's on a scale of 1 to 100. His, passer rating was under 80. It was 79.1. I have a question for you guys, and Valiant Vincent, they're trying to connect Mike McDonald with Michael McDonald, the lead singer of the Doobie Brothers, Blackwater. China Grove, my personal favorite song by the Doobie Brothers, by the way. But what I was going to say is that it just, I need advice from the two of you. So all week long, so we've talked about this on the show before, okay? Week 6 of this past football season, I'm doing the Football Night in America podcast, and the Patriots had beaten the Saints. Great, you beat the Saints. Woo! Good to go to forward to.
The Spencer Rattler Saints.
Yes, exactly, the Spencer Rattler Saints. But whatever, the Patriots beat the Saints, and Devin McCourty, somewhat facetiously, says, just talk about Drake Maye had a good game in that one, and says, to me, he's like, Drake Maye is the best quarterback from the 2024 draft class. Pointedly at me because he knows I'm such a Jaden Daniels homer. fine. And I was like, yeah. Talk to me when he gets to an AFC Championship game, the way that Jaden obviously had gone to the NFC Championship game in his rookie year. To which Devin responds, it's a great line. Devin responds, he says, yeah, we only count Super Bowls in New England. And when you're a three-time Super Bowl champion like that, Devin McCourty, you can say lines like that. So anyway, great line, whatever. Okay. So as they, that made the rounds in the moment, when the Patriots made the AFC Championship game, they came back around. I fully owned it. You know what I mean? I quote tweeted it. I posted on my Instagram. I fully owned it. Connor and I had a whole conversation about it. I was just like, yeah, congrats to Drake Maye. It's awesome. I was wrong. He's my vote for MVP. I've been, you guys know, Drake Maye was on my preseason love list. And I got into an argument on air with Jason Garrett because Jason Garrett had Stafford as his MVP. And I'm like, I think Drake Maye's the MVP. I think he's done more with less than Stafford has. I mean, I think Stafford had a brilliant season, but, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Sean McVay make a lot of things easy. And so I said I would have voted for Drake Maye over Stafford. Okay. So then this week of the Super Bowl, my mentions and my Instagram DMs, everything's just been blowing up. All these guys from Boston showing this clip in my face, blah, 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 just shoving this play on and on, like constant. I'm like, guys, I've already addressed this. I've already talked about it, but on and on. It's like, it's making the rounds again. And they're doing, it's my DMs, it's public, it's on Twitter, it's all these blogs, everything like that. And so here's my advice. This is my question that I need answered from you guys. Because part of me is just like, guys, I've already addressed it. It was a comment in week 6. And honestly, it was a fair comment in week 6 because Jaden Daniels at that point had been to an NFC Championship game with the 18th ranked defense. Drake Maye's got a top 5 defense and candidly an easier schedule. I would argue the AFC East this year was a lot easier than the NFC East last year, that had the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles in it, and a solid Cowboys team. So, anyway, so my question is that part of me wants to be like, guys, did this. The other part of me is just like, QBR of 16. By the way, he took 6 sacks. He was not good this entire playoff run. He just wasn't. And you can make arguments, bad offensive line, bad weather conditions. But the truth of the matter is that Drake Maye did not have a great playoff stretch. So my question to you two, my social media gurus, is how would you play this if you were me?
Well, firstly, that's the longest question I've ever heard in my life.
What else do you want to like? We got time to kill. We got time to kill. Adam says we have time to kill, so I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to kill a little time here.
Matthew, I think we'll have to have you reconnect if you're still out there.
Yeah.
Jay, is he frozen for you?
No, I think it's you, actually. I think you're the one taking it. Yeah, Matthew's Mr. Strawberry's coming through loud and clear.
I'm going to have to reconnect
on this end. But look, here's what I'd say. I'd say that the default in these situations is usually to take the high road. And I would recommend the high road in this case because, one, there's been a lot of dancing on Drake Maye's grave. Guy's 23 years old. His best receiver is Stephon Diggs, who is towards the end of his career, or Kayshon Boutte. He's dependent. Like Matt Hollins was his number one option on yesterday. He's playing with an offensive line that came into the season as a huge weakness, fortified a little bit throughout the year, and then its weaknesses came to the fore very much, not just on Sunday, but throughout this whole playoff run as the Patriots played 4 of the 6 best defenses in the whole league. So I think with Drake Maye, we just need to take a step back. And I get that there's a lot of celebration around Matthew Stafford winning MVP and the fact that he should have won by even more. MVP is a regular season award. What happened in if you're going to include the playoffs, then Stafford by margin clearly was better than Drake Maye. And what Stafford was able to do against the Seahawks defense looks even more impressive now that no one else really was able to have this success against Seattle, particularly in the second half of the season. But ultimately, like all you're doing too, Matthew, if you take a victory lap around this, you're just setting yourself up for when Jaden Daniels throws 2 interceptions in a game next year, then it just comes back in your face.
Let it die.
That's fair. Yeah. You know what? I think that's fair, and I will take the high road, which is not something I'm gonna have to find the way to the high road because, as I don't really know my way there, but I'll get a map. Jay, you'll send me a map and I'll find my way to the high road. No, I agree, and I think the future is very bright for Drake Maye and the Patriots. I know they're very SEC man saying I want Maye in my fantasy team next year. Only problem, the Sharks in my league will bid him up. There's no question about that. I don't think Drake Maye goes outside the top 5 quarterbacks next year at all. Yeah, it was just, listen, tough day at the office for Drake Maye, but Seattle's made a lot of good quarterbacks not look great. And I agree with you. I think people forget, because of all the success, Connor, how young Drake Maye is, not just in terms of age,
Right.
but in terms of playing experience. He was only the starter for, I believe, 1 year at North Carolina, or like a year and a half.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah, I mean, like he played less than 20 games as a starter in college before he came. I don't remember the exact number, but I know it was in the teens as a starter when he came into the NFL.
Well, he didn't stay in college very long, right? That was more of it, where he kind of burst onto the scene as an underclassman, and then the final year when he was draft eligible, the team around him stunk, that he was under duress a lot like last night. It was Drake Maye's last college year. It looked exactly like that, where people were like, well, we know he's really talented and he's worthy of a top 5 pick easily, but is he going to form some bad habits with a bad supporting cast? And then obviously year 2 in the NFL with Josh McDaniels, now you've just seen so much good from Drake Maye that, listen, he ran into a gauntlet in the playoffs that maybe the pendulum swung a little bit too far of what he did the regular season, where everybody anointed him as potentially the MVP of the league. And then on the flip side of it, is he as bad as the player we saw in this playoffs against the best defenses across the NFL? No, he's not even close. I think Drake Maye has so much promise. So it's a really interesting topic. And when you look at this specifically, you have the Jaden Daniels element, who was head and shoulders above his class his rookie year by far. You have Drake Maye, who was so good in year 2. And then on the flip side of it, I don't think he's in either class of Maye or Jaden right now, but Caleb Williams is coming. Yeah. And, I don't know if he's going to be as good as those two guys, but his highs are as good as anybody. It's just kind of getting the lows out of his system. So it just goes back to, and Bo Nix played one of the best games of his career before he broke his ankle. So it's amazing how strong of a quarterback class it specifically was. And I think it's going to make this debate really fun, not for next year, but for the next 5 years.
Yeah, there's no question about that. What were we going to say there, Jay?
Well, we got a question from Ved. Which wide receiver would the Pats need next year to help Maye? I mean, the answer is just any wide receiver one, whether that's A.J. Brown with a trade request, whether it's a Marvin Harrison Jr., whether it's a Brian Thomas Jr. getting a new fresh start, just anyone who has kind of outlier separation skills, because that's the key. And what has just come to the fore in all these Seattle games is that if you don't have receivers who can separate and win quickly, you just don't have a prayer against the best defense. So we saw that even with Kyle Shanahan's offense. As he said on the pregame show, like across 2 games, he didn't score a touchdown against the Seattle defense. And I think the reason why, for the most part, because the Niners have a decent offensive line, it's just that their receivers could not separate because they were, by the end of the season, particularly so banged up, and they didn't get the Brandon Ayuk that they were hoping to have at all this season. So I think that Maye needs receivers who can separate and who are just bring a bit more of a talent ceiling to that receiver room. But ultimately, like Connor, like you take a step back, Drake Maye's 23 years old. Just given his age, like I'm not sure if you redrafted the entire league today. Yeah, I think like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, these guys are better than Drake Maye right now. They're also like 6-7 years older. Like you can make the case that Drake Maye, if you drafting the league, there is a chance that Drake Maye goes first overall.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. And I think in terms of, like, for me, this is obvious, but it feels like the Patriots' number one concern is offensive line. Like I would, like if depending, I don't know what their cap is at the moment. And, but like for me, I feel like if I had a choice of going back with the exact same wide receivers next year, but, could rebuild the offensive line the way the Bears did this past offseason, right? And, take it from one of the worst to like a top 5 unit. Give me that, right? Because it's like, for all the hand wringing and they need better wide receivers, blah, blah, like similar to the Bills, like they got it done. Like this is a team that was in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, right. Yes. Those guys couldn't separate. They couldn't separate quickly, but also, they were also not able to run the ball super effectively in this one. And they weren't able to protect Drake Maye to give him time. He officially was sacked. He's officially sacked 6 times. Next Gen Stats has Will Campbell pressured allowed in Super Bowl was 14. They just, it was tough. By the way, the other big issue on the other side of the ball, we've just kept talking about Drake Maye here, but let's talk about the Seahawks for a second. That Seahawks offense, according to PFF, Patriots defense had 17 missed tackles in the Super Bowl. That was a season high. And so, and especially, for all the prowess of like, hey, listen, this is a great run defense. Meaning the Patriots. Patriots have this amazing run defense, especially with Milton Williams. They haven't given up. I think the stat was whatever Ken Walker's rushing line was. I think it was 79. I think it closed at 79.5. Like they had in a game in which Milton Williams was active, they hadn't given that number up all season long to a running back. And obviously, Walker goes for, over 100, well over 100. And so, those outside runs were so effective. They were able to get outside, and the pursuit wasn't there. Just again, credit Clint Kubiak, credit the Seahawks offense here, but the Patriots defense didn't show up, I think, the way they were expecting it to. I know they shut them down when they got in the red zone and a lot of field goals, but ultimately, which was, by the way, one of my also one of the legs, no pun intended, of my parlay was Jason Myers to kick 2 field goals, which obviously happened 3 times. He hit that bet 3 different times. Yeah.
Yeah, Matthew, you brought it up that, part of the core of this Patriots team was the fundamentals, and some of that evaporated. And it's going to happen when you just play a better opponent. And we saw that Kenneth Walker consistently creating his own yards, 27 carries, 135 yards. 2 receptions. Sorry, Matthew. Should have had 3. Hit him right
Got
in the
4
hands.
targets too. I mean, that's what's so frustrating. He'd hit it.
The thought process was correct.
He hit it in 4 of the last 5. He'd hit it in both playoff games. Obviously, it's in Charbonnet. I knew that he was going to be out there like a ton. He got 4 targets. 1 hit him in the chest and he dropped it. 1 Darnold threw at his feet when he was a little bit under pressure. But you think, right? If he's going to get 4 targets, he probably gets there with 3 receptions, given the fact that these aren't long passes. Like any pass to Ken Walker is going to be a little 5-yard dump off. So yes, very bitter about that. That was my Barry's bet into the 9-game win streak on that. But my other bets that I gave out, Cooper Kupp over on the receiving yards, Matt Collins over the receiving yards, those both cashed. On the Olympic side, I gave out the first half under. I gave out Ken Walker over on the rushing attempts. Those all hit. I did a DraftKings thing for the Olympics. So overall, a very good Super Bowl for me. But yes, the Ken Walker 2 receptions, just a killer. But Walker was amazing, guys, and I think this is where you're headed, Connor. So I'll turn it back and ask you guys, what is he wins Super Bowl MVP, cashes at plus 850. My question to you is, he's now a free agent, and what do the Seahawks do? Right, like where does he? Alan Graff X says way too early, but where does K. Will III, where does KW3 go in drafts next year? And do you think the Seahawks franchise tag him? Do they bring him back? Like Super Bowl MVP. Like I think the thought was at the beginning of the season or even the middle of the season that, hey, with Charbonnet, maybe they move on, let Charbonnet become the lead, and they'll add to the backfield, whether it's free agency with some depth or the draft. But I don't know how you let Ken Walker, after winning you a Super Bowl, walk out that door, especially given how brutal that injury was to Zach Charbonnet.
At a minimum, you have to franchise tag him and work on an extension, right? And you brought up the Charbonnet injury, Matthew, that even further reemphasizes the point that, you tear your ACL in January. What is that going to look like for a running back? Are you just going to be full throttle in August camp? No, you're ramping him up in the middle of the season, even on an early rehabilitation scale. You can't predict what that, and this team is so run heavy, even with Kubiak moving on to the Raiders, they're not going to change the identity of who they are. So I think there's a high likelihood that the 2 running backs we're most excited about in free agency, and Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, end up hit with the franchise tag or the transition tag, because that number is so low. There's really no such thing as a bad 1-year deal. Running backs can fall off a cliff at any given moment, so you'd rather pay them on the 1 years for a little bit more per year than the multi-years of guaranteed money. So, Jay, I don't – and here's the little kicker here that's unbelievable in this, Jay. Seattle has a ton of cap space. They're a Super Bowl winner with a ton of cap space going into next year. This is John Schneider is who he is for a reason, right? But this is one of the more amazing facts about this roster right now. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that I think there's this perception, certainly after the fact, that the Patriots are here a bit ahead of their time and they've overachieved massively. Seahawks had a lower win total than the Patriots coming into this season. This was a bridge year for Seattle. They just won the Super Bowl in a bridge year where their win total was 7.5. They were a distant 4th favorite to win their own division. And as it relates to Ken Walker, I think we forget, because it feels like he's been around for a while. He's 25 years old. This is year 4. And he finally had well, he had his moment on the biggest stage, but he's always been someone that the advanced stats have always loved. Like, he's always been an elite running back by PFF grade. He's the number one running back in the whole NFL across the whole season by PFF grade this year. He's top 7 each of the past 3 seasons. And to your point, Connor, there's no real alternative because this team just runs the ball so much. And as much as JSN, who wins Offensive Player of the Year, who is certainly the star and the best player on this offense, as much as he is the best player on the offense, this is a team that is built around Clint Kubiak's run scheme and play action off of that. And it requires a lot of running the ball. And Ken Walker is certainly the most talented guy that they could get in free agency. So yeah, I would suspect that they just bring him back. And then, as always is the case with Ken Walker, you just hold your breath and hope that he stays healthy.
Connor, as you sit there and look at a team that has a ton of cap space, if you were John Schneider, what would you spend it on? Again, feels like it's a team's strong that's top to bottom. Personally, I think, as much as we like Cooper Kupp, and it'll be great to see a full season Rashid Shaheed, I think another receiver would be interesting. All due respect to Jake Bobo. But I'm curious where you feel like you would spend the money. Where can Seattle improve, which is a scary thought to think about?
They definitely have some housekeeping to do internally. So 2 of their starting corners in Josh Jobe and of course Tariq Woolen are UFAs. So right there, you're not going to bring back both of them. There's a chance they let both of them go and just draft one at the end of the first round because this is a team that knows how to evaluate the position so well. Kobe Bryant, one of their safeties, is a free agent. You brought up Rashid Shaheed, Matthew. I would like to see him back in Seattle and kind of get a full training camp to work with Sam Darnold, but that just further emphasizes the point that they're going to need a number 2 wide receiver, assuming that, Kupp kind of operates more as the number 3. So they'll be able to handle a lot of their in-house business. Another key spot for me is I'd like to see them upgrade the right guard spot. I thought Gray Zabel was a really, really good pick, but now it's about solidifying the other side of the interior. They have 2 really good tackles. They just extended one in Charles Cross, so they got that bit of business done. Sam Darnold is very affordable as far as quarterback contracts go, so you don't have a quarterback contract bleeding your cap space dry. So can you bring back Shaheed? You probably got to go get another corner. And man, if they upgrade at guard, this run game might be even better next year. That's what's just so crazy. And maybe a middle linebacker at some point for their team as well. When you look at how great this defense is, there's just not a lot of holes. But Seattle's a team, they have some key free agents, but I honestly think they can make the roster better with those exact moves. And the fact that they still have their first rounder. There's like 4 or 5 teams that don't even have their first round pick this year because they tried to go all in. Seattle didn't even do that. So they'll have the 32nd overall pick in this draft.
Yeah, obviously a very complete team. To your point, kind of like Anthony Bradford is probably the weak point of the offense for an upgrade at right guard. And then as dominant as the defense is, we saw what the Rams were able to do to them. And I think that was largely because of some weaknesses at outside corner, where Witherspoon is obviously incredible. Eamon Warrior is incredible when he's playing in the slot or wherever they want to deploy him. But between Jobe and Tariq Woolen, who was almost one of the great villains in Seattle sports history, based on what happened in the Rams game, they could probably upgrade there. But I mean, these are things around the margins. Like, we forget that, or maybe we don't forget, this team went 14-3. They were just 4.5, inching towards 5-point favorites to win the Super Bowl, and they won by 16 points, and the 16 points probably flattered the Patriots as a final margin. So, yes, this is a dominant team. The issue for them is that they play in the same division as Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, so it's just always going to be tough getting back here. But, I mean, they enter next season Super Bowl favorite, and they're incredibly complete.
Let's go. Matthew, you had a lot for the Kenneth Walker drop heard around the world. I feel like you did have a lot of hits in this game. I know you were on Cooper Kupp over receiving, over 32.5. The New England side, you mentioned the 3-play. You hit on both the May rushing yards, 25+ alt line, Jason Myers at 2+ field goals. And then,
my third leg was Hunter Henry, 40 receiving yards. That didn't cash. I mean, he has 31, but then he leaves the game with a bit of injury. Cooper gets 10 yards. Like,
that's tough. He got smashed on the 2-point conversion, and that probably cost them because, like you said, the throw went to Hooper at the start of the next drive. And then you guys kind of had a little bit of a mashup here. Matthew going with Mac Hollins over 26.5 yards. Jay, I believe this was a pickup line for you a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we talked as well about Mac Hollins being the leading receiver in the game at 17-1 on Radio Row, which has somehow hit in the end. It wasn't a high bar to clear. I think second in the game was Cooper Kupp at 61, but Mac Hollins going for 78 yards and a touchdown. He leads all receivers in the game. And he goes well over that line, ended up closing around 24.5. Which I never really understood because he was one of Drake Maye's favorite weapons across the board for the Patriots. Like disappointing game for Stephon Diggs, disappointing game for Hunter Henry. Who the Seahawks were, I believe they gave up the 5th or the 6th most receptions to tight ends this year, and Hunter Henry wasn't able to do a great deal. Back to the Seattle side, I mean, it's a disappointing game for JSN. Who cares? Like, they won the Super Bowl. He had an incredible season. I don't think he'll really care, and the win is much more important. But the thing is, JSN is that he was so close to a 90-yard touchdown on the
Would he have won
drive.
MVP if Darnold hits that throw?
I think so.
I think so too.
Because, I mean, you're just getting an 90-yard head start.
And a memorable moment in a game that offensively didn't have a ton of them.
Yep. So, inches away there. To be fair, there's a lot of slander about Darnold after that throw. Like, that developed very late. I'm not sure he could even see where JSN was exactly in the depth when he let that ball go. But, it would have been nice for JSN if that had been just a half yard or so closer to him. Because, he was off to the races. That was going to be a bomb touchdown.
Yeah, 86. I think it would have been like 86 yards.
Yeah.
Would have been that touchdown. Connor, what do you make of TreVeyon Henderson and how he ended the regular the season, right? You know, this wasn't used very much in the playoffs. My friend Ian Harditz from Fantasy Life tweeted this about an hour ago. TreVeyon Henderson turned 30 postseason carries into just 76 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. His only explosive rush was for 15 yards with under 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter against the Chargers. What do we make of TreVeyon Henderson and the way he ended the season, which is, you know, we were so excited in the middle of the year. Finally, the kid that we saw at Ohio State is busting out, and then I don't know what happened. You know, he got more run in the Super Bowl than we'd seen, last couple games, but still just not the same guy for some reason.
Well, here's the issue, right? We loved TreVeyon Henderson this year when Rhamondre Stevenson was banged up. And then when Rhamondre Stevenson was healthy and got some fumbles behind him, it felt like it was his show again. So you're sitting here and going, okay, well, maybe this will be TreVeyon Henderson's backfield next year. Rhamondre Stevenson is not only under contract next year, but the Patriots, unless they make him a post-June 1 cut, they don't save any money. They actually lose a lot of money if they cut him. So they're not cutting him. And this is an offensive staff that they like the veterans, right? So it's not that I'm writing off TreVeyon. It's just buyer beware next year. Like if you're buying into his highs from his rookie year, you might be riding out the same wave where you have these peak weeks because of injury to Rhamondre or script, and he could hit the big play at any moment. But I don't know, guys. It's just committee backfields, especially under Josh McDaniels, it's very, very tricky. Rhamondre is not going anywhere. And until that ends, I don't know how you could just buy into TreVeyon at a very, very high price. And I would imagine, Matthew, he won't be cheap next year in drafts.
No, he won't. I mean, I'm going to have Rhamondre ranked ahead of TreVeyon Henderson.
Right. The upside, I get it.
Yeah. I'm not going to feel great about it, but I'm going to rank Rhamondre Stevenson ahead of TreVeyon Henderson. I don't know how you can't. And so, yeah, I mean, but you're absolutely right. Like Josh McDaniels, whether it was, whether it's, LeGarrette Blount and James White, or he always just kind of used multiple running backs over the years. It's going to be kind of a staple of his play calling.
Stay with us, Matthew. We need you. 5 more minutes. You're so close to being done with the Super Bowl coverage.
Excuse me. I apologize. It's been a long week and many nights of talking a lot.
He was so close to winning Comeback Player of the Year. Instead, it goes to Noah Eagle. Defeats you. You're your wingman on the field. Alas, that's okay. That's okay. Ozizaki, does that give TreVeyon better best ball value than redraft?
Yes, because you'll get when he has his highs, you'll have his highs, and so if Rhamondre gets banged up, or if they figure out a way to get some consistency out of TreVeyon, and because we know the talent's there, We know the talent, the explosiveness, the speed is somewhere in there. They just haven't been able to unlock it. And maybe with an improved offensive line as well, which is obviously that's going to be a priority for the Patriots. I don't know how it could not be. That'll help as well.
All right, guys, as we put a bow on Super Bowl 60, we're not going anywhere until we look ahead at next year. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the app and use promo code FFHH when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
Oh, the crown is yours.
The crown is yours. Last call, way too early. Super Bowl favorites, of course, for next year. Seattle and the Rams at the top of this board at plus 950. The top AFC team is the Bills at plus 1100 here, followed by the Eagles. And then there's the Patriots down the board here. Jay, are you already getting involved here? Is there a value play? Do you like betting Super Bowl this early? Is there a way to... like an advantage in a way, pre-draft, pre-free agency?
Yeah, the advantage would be just being able to calibrate a team's upside through the cap space that they have for the most part, and the fact that a team is going to naturally improve. Now, the irony is that, to your point, the Seahawks, who are already the favorites, have a lot of cap space. It's just so tough with their division. The two bets that I would look at, and one of them you're going to think is silly, the other one not as silly. But the first one, Indianapolis Colts, a 60-1. And they were 10 weeks into the season. They were the favorites to win the AFC. We forget that. And I think that with Daniel Jones hopefully being healthy for the start of the season, a full year of Sauce Gardner, look, I don't think that they should be a top 3 or top 4 favorite in the AFC, but I think that the AFC just looks a little bit more vulnerable than it did, even a year ago when it looked like it was just this complete dominance of Mahomes, Lamar, and Allen at the top, and no one else was going to get in. Well, between them, those three guys, they won one playoff game combined this season, and there's question marks about all three of those teams. So I think that the AFC just being, somewhat not necessarily wide open, but we just saw an underdog come from nowhere to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC. So I think that the Colts do have upside, despite my homerism there. And then so Burks and Flannels, what's the parlay for who's Jay's favorite team will be next? I'm a Colts fan. I'm a diehard Colts fan.
What other bandwagon will he jump on?
You'll pick up an NFC team along the way.
Could have been the Jags if they hadn't screwed me in the wild card round against the Bills. Alas, they have some work to do to win back my heart. The other team, though,
I could see this. I could see the Saints. I could see Jay crawling back to the Saints.
Yeah.
Tyler Shuck.
Yeah. Him and Shuck were pals at Radio Row.
Yeah. Shuck wagon. I like Tyler Shuck. I don't think he's going to be in the Super Bowl, but I like Tyler Shuck. The other bet, the Chiefs at 15-1, which is almost an annual tradition for me at this point. I assume that Mahomes is going to be right, at least somewhat early in the season. And just the idea, like the Chiefs have longer odds right now than the Patriots. If you made me choose one of those teams to get out of the AFC next year, odds agnostic, I would take Kansas City. I think that another year for guys like Josh Simmons to get experience and fortify the offensive line. The defense can be fortified a little bit as well. And I think that it's still Patrick Mahomes who has a good chance to be the best player in football next year. And just Patrick Mahomes at 15-1 to win the Super Bowl doesn't strike the right, doesn't feel correct to me.
I mean, speaking about how wide open the AFC is, I feel like people are just forgetting the Broncos were the number 1 seed, and probably, Bo Nix doesn't break his ankle.
Right. I agree.
Probably go to the Super Bowl, and I think they would have been a much better match for Seattle. So, they have a good young quarterback. They're developing some of their offensive players. Another year with RJ Harvey, third year for Bo Nix. Obviously an elite defense. The Broncos, to me, I think, I don't know what their odds are, but the Broncos, to me, I think would be a very
18-1.
I mean, I don't think they should be that low, right? So the Broncos would be really interesting to me at 18-1. Connor, any team that stands out to you?
I like the Niners at 17-1 with the thinking that, man, they ran out of people on defense this year. And I know they lose Robert Saleh, but they already replenished that staff right away. Raheem Morris is a hell of a coach. They have really good assistants. The fact that they made it as far as they did without Nick Bosa, they lost their first-round pick, Mykel Williams, really, really early on. They got some work to do to replenish that wide receiver room for sure. They're going to be without George Kittle for a bit there as well. But Yeah, I just buy the dip on Kyle Shanahan whenever you can. It's a good business to be in that with his win total, with Super Bowl odds at 17-1. If the Niners make some improvements and get healthy, I think when the season opens, they won't be 17-1. They'll probably be 13 or 12-1. So they're just an easy team to buy into with the stability they have schematically on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I like that. And by the way, just one of the thrills, and there were so many of being part of NBC Super Bowl coverage this year, was that we added Kyle Shanahan.
He was great.
Right? Wasn't he great?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
But also just, getting to know him a little bit and like just sort of, hanging out in the green room, talking ball, or even honestly just being a fly on the wall as he was talking football with Jason Garrett, with Chris Sims, like just sort of me being able to be part of those conversations was really, really fun. And, he's so smart. He was incredibly nice. Great to meet him. But it was just great to sort of hear his thoughts, both on TV and, off camera. So, he was great. Kyle was absolutely fantastic here. Jay, for you, I know you had a lot of bets. I know you had a lot of futures bets. How did the Super Bowl ultimately treat you?
It was good. Was on Seattle with the futures position there, but the funniest aspect of betting the Super Bowl, I ended up betting a lot of money on Jason Myers not to win Super Bowl MVP, which, let me tell you, was absolutely terrifying. The final drive where New England go for the onside kick and then Seattle recovers it, and I'm thinking, like, if they go run, and the clock is there's still going to be time on the clock, is Jason Myers going to kick like a 59-yard field goal for his sixth field goal of the game? And I'm going to have to sweat this out, having bet in minus 1,000 no on Myers not to win Super Bowl MVP. So that would have been absolutely crushing. Fortunately, I think.
When did you bet that? Did you bet that? Oh, in game. Okay, that makes
sense. In the game, because there was a lot of, because he set the record for most field goals kicked, and I just was regressing to the idea that ultimately, the thing is that look, he did his job. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, but it's not like he was making 60-yarders, and he wasn't kicking walk-off game winners either. I really couldn't fathom that anyone watching that game was going to think that Myers was more impactful to the outcome than Ken Walker or Devin Witherspoon. That's what I was holding on to. I think it would have got a little scary if he'd made a 60-yarder in the final 2 minutes to break the record by 50%. But ultimately, he did not win Super Bowl MVP, and Ken Walker did. And I think that was a reasonably just outcome.
Hey, did anyone see, because it was, we were up in the stands, and so I didn't get a chance to see, but what was the color of the Gatorade?
Yellow
Cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was one for me that hit during the week. Total guess. Like, you never I think it's gonna be yellow. Like, it's just, you have fun with it. Now it was funny because they really did a good job, NBC, of showing it being mixed a lot. So it had to come off the table. Jay, when does that market usually close? It has to be one of the earliest closing markets because there's so many hints.
Yeah, it varies all over the place, but a lot of these markets now, particularly around Super Bowl performers, there's some controversy as to whether Cardi B performed as she was there. She was not singing, but she was there dancing. So was that a performance or not? So yeah, that's the joy of the Super Bowl. It's the only time we get to talk about Gatorade and Cardi B performing and not performing. Yeah, it's the biggest betting event of the year, certainly.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for us for now.
Yeah, what's our schedule? I don't even know.
You tell me. It's your show.
Yeah, it's a good point.
We gotta get you back in the Northeast first.
Yeah, well, I'm flying out tomorrow. I'll fly back tomorrow. I'm gonna do a little sightseeing with my wife and daughters are out, so we figured as long as we hauled them all the way across the country, might as well do some sightseeing. They've never been to the Bay Area, so we're gonna do some sightseeing. I think we'll do a little Alcatraz and some of the other sights and sounds around here in the Bay Area, and then I got to get back. I don't know. We're probably off next week, but
I'll tell you, I'll break
combine, right?
We're off for 2 weeks and then back at the combine.
In
2 weeks from now, but we will be off until that point.
Okay, good. Well, we'll still have our text chain. I'm sure there'll be ones that I'm not on, but be fun. Well, I'll miss you guys until the combine, until we see you guys in Indianapolis, and thank you to the regulars for an incredible season. It's been so much fun, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys soon. Right? Yeah, 2 weeks.
That's right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
We'll catch you in the combine.
All right. See you guys. Peace out.